Hej och välkomna till, jag heter Katarina Mattsson och är från Folkets Bio och vi kommer nu att ha ett samtal med regissören Julia von Heinz, regissören till filmen Imorgon, hela världen, som har premiär fredag den 13 augusti. So, Julia von Heinz, so happy to meet you and so happy we could have this talk.
Thank you for having me, yes.
We're getting used to having Zoom talks, although it would have been much more fun if you had been able to come here.
That would be so nice, but I have experienced it with this film a lot of times now. So I had much more Zoom Q&As for the film than real life Q&As, so I'm used to it.
Yes, we're getting used to it. So, just a short background, you're a director and screenwriter, and you started off by your career with being an assistant to Rosa von Braunheim. Is that correct?
That is right.
Yes,
that is correct.
That must have been an experience, I guess.
It was an experience. It still is an experience because we are very close friends and colleagues, and we share our films all the times and our scripts, and we are in an artificial contact all the time, actually. And but it was a very important person to meet him as the first person you really meet, because for him it's all about what he's telling, and he has so many themes and that he wants to make films about, and it's never only about money or entertainment. It's always about what he really wants to tell the people. So that was important for me to see him and to observe him and to learn from him.
Yeah, and since then you've made how many films? 3 feature films, or
films that I have written also. 4. There were 4, and now a series. I'm just shooting that here in Berlin, but there were other films that I made as a director from other writers.
Yes, that I understand have been awarded in festivals also.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, and we're here now to talk about your latest film, And Tomorrow the Entire World, and in Swedish it's Imorgon, hela världen. And it had its world premiere in Venice last year, also during the pandemic, which must have been kind of different, I guess.
I don't know if it was different because I've never been to an A festival before with a film. So for me, it was all huge and glamorous and overwhelming. So, and I think it was. They managed very well to make it a real great event during the pandemic. But still, I can't compare. And for me, it was amazing to see that this film, which I had thought was also a small film and a film about a Western German city and our problems here, that so many people from all the world reacted on that, and so many journalists from countries from all over the world had the feeling I made a film that also fits to their country. And I wasn't aware when I made that film that it could interest such an international community. That was amazing.
Yes, and that's good and bad, because I mean the negative side that these problems exist all over the world, and in Europe very much at this moment. And the film in Germany was released in Germany.
It was released, and again, I was very torn with this film, because on the one hand, we had only 4 days in cinema because the second lockdown came and all the cinemas closed after 4 days. And it was the first film in my life that really many young people wanted to see. In this first 4 days, we saw pictures from cinemas where young people were lining up to see that film. And not everybody got a ticket. And they made more screenings and more at midnight, in the morning. And that is amazing. I don't know how often a filmmaker can experience that. And after 4 days, it was all over. So on the one hand, it was a huge success for me, artificial access, and a success that a subject that is so important for me found so much interest. And on the other hand, of course, there was a lot of disappointment that not enough people could see it.
And the press reactions, could be a controversial film, maybe, in Germany?
Yes, it is controversial. I've read a lot about my film because it's very, very interesting. I Googled it all the time. So I think I read quite everything that was written about it. And there was a lot of support. Many journalists and film critics liked it. But there was also a lot of hatred from right-wing parties. And even they made something that is something, if you have a problem with something as a political party, you can do a kleine Anfrage, a little request to the government. And so someone has to take care of it. Mm-hmm. And so the AfD, the right-wing party here, made this little request. How could a film like that be financed with public money? And that was a little bit scaring for me. And also in their magazines, they showed pictures of me and that I'm a supporter of Antifa, and they looked into my past. I have told enough about my past. I'm very open about it, but it's not nice if someone writes this portrait about you out of this very hateful point of view. So I also read things like that. And also, and that was interesting for me, there was some criticism from the very left side. Not, and that is something I think about the most. That is the thing that I don't know, I have to think about the most. And some young women wrote that the woman in the film, Louisa, is too much after the boys. So they are the strong ones, they are the leaders, and she follows them. And I have the feeling they are right. I take that, I embrace that criticism. And I think, because I'm 45, in the last 5 years, so much happened here about feminism, about how we show women. And perhaps because it took me so long to write this script, and also because it's from my own past, I can see that it's a little bit old-fashioned here. And that was very interesting for me. Still, it's not because so many young women love that film, but there were some blogs, and I don't know, I just want to think about it and think they are right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, of course, there are many things that draw people to movements, and I guess love is one of them, perhaps.
I think so, yes. And for me, it was always very important to make a film that is realistic, not a film that a young woman is only into politics and she knows what to do and she knows what is right and what is wrong, and then she follows that. But that there are so many motivations. There's a group dynamic, there's love. You find someone attractive. Of course, what she experiences in the country, it's also a motivation, but it's only one. And that is very honest, to be honest, because that is what I experienced and what drove me into that world when I was young.
So because the film is based on your own experiences, as I understand it?
Yes.
But you wanted to tell the story in a more contemporary context? Or?
Yes, we did a lot of research, how the Antifa changed during the decades since us, that is John and me, my husband and I, we always write together as a team. And we met in the Antifa during the 90s. And we always had the feeling we want to make a film about it and we want to show that side of Germany. There are so many films about Nazis and neo-Nazis. And because that was such a strong movement and still is in Germany, we always had the feeling we have to bring that to the world because no one else from the Antifa became a filmmaker. And that was very important for us. But of course, we did a lot of research and visited groups from today, so it could be contemporary.
And what do you think is different in the Antifa now and then?
We were much more organized and much more into one subject against Nazis and of course against capitalism, because that is the root of every evil. Today, it's much more open. It's less organized. I feel many groups are more open and there are so many more subjects. It's about feminism. It's about climate change, environment, animal rights. You have so many groups and I think that's great. But we couldn't show all that.
No, of course. And but what is Antifa for you? You have I read somewhere what your definition is, or how you see it as an organization.
It used to be an organization, but that ended in Germany, a strict organization that ended in the 2003 about. And now it's just groups. You can join in, you can come today, you can leave tomorrow. It's not an organization now. And so if people say we have to, I don't know, illegalize the Antifa, it's just stupid, because everybody can say I'm Antifa. It's so many people, and it just means I'm an anti-fascist, which everybody should be.
Exactly. I was thinking about Louisa. And Louisa is a young woman from a very privileged background, and she joins this movement. And what is it that draws her to? I mean, now we just talked about love, but do you think that there is like a bad conscience for the privileged, or just who is she?
That's also one of her motivations. Guilt, yeah, like you say it. And it is something that we really observed, who comes to the Antifa, who goes to these demonstrations. And it is many, many people who have a white privileged background. And I wanted to show that. I didn't want to make a fairy tale Antifa with people of all color. I mean, I did it a little bit like it is, but it's not really true. It's very often privileged people. And they fight for other people, which is perfect, and they really should. But that also brings problems. And we see that with Alpha, our male character, because we discover he's the loudest, he's the hardest, but he's also from a very privileged background. And there will be a moment where we see it's not so important for him, and he's not so serious about it like we thought. And there is another life waiting for him, and he can go there. And for many immigrants, for many people of color, they cannot afford to get confronted with the police like that. They cannot afford to go to, I don't know, demonstrations and spend all their time in Antifa groups discussing about how to say the sentence for hours, because they, I don't know, it's a less privileged life. And I wanted to be very honest about who does what in Germany in the left-wing groups.
But how is the Antifa movement, which you just said is not a movement,
yes.
but these different groups, are they still very young people?
Yes, it is. There are still very many young people, and I think it will be more open now. There are new groups now, like the Pantifa, which are people of color, or the Migrantifa, which are people who are immigrants. It is much more open now, but that is something that just happens now.
And is it very militant, or how do they work?
I don't know. I think it's whatever you choose to be. Like in my film, there are people who don't want to do that, and other groups do it. I think the film shows quite well that it's your own decision to be militant or not.
Because I was thinking about, you said that when you were young and when I was young, which was even longer ago, it was in a way simpler. We knew what we were fighting against, but now I have a feeling that the problems are so overwhelming. I mean, it's not only capitalism, or if you ask me, it is capitalism at the bottom of everything, but it's the climate and it's immigration. And I have the feeling that people are it's so overwhelming that it's difficult to get organized because you don't know where to put your energy.
I feel so, yes, but still I have teenage children, and of course, before Corona, they went to the Fridays for Future demonstrations. They wanted to go there, and my daughter, she's into queer rights. So probably there are enough possibilities. If you know what interests you, you can find the right people. And I embrace so much when I observe my teenage children that it's more open and not so I don't know, when John and I, when we were in these Antifa groups, it was like, these are the right people, nobody else is interesting, nobody else is right. We know how to do it. We have to teach everybody how to do it. And it's different now. And I think it's better.
Those days, I think. I think you're right. I think that maybe that's a good thing, but you would love to have all of these different groups come together into one big movement, of course.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's so difficult to choose who to vote for and who stands for at least some of these very important issues. You're so right. And I feel overwhelmed. And I can't decide where to put my energy. And yeah, I put it into filmmaking now. That's enough.
My approach is to just stay angry, because every morning when you open the paper, there's always something to get really, really angry about. And I think anger is good fuel for political awareness.
Exactly. And that made me so happy that finally with this film, this could meet, because of course I'm an activist and I'm a filmmaker, and I had the feeling, and this started in Venice, when we came there were very little questions about how did you make these films? Why did you choose that camera angle? But a lot of questions about the situation in Germany. And for me and the actors, we had to change our mind and to know, okay, this will be 5 days for us talking about these subjects and not so much about our film and about our work. And that was great.
Mm-hmm. Because when I think that it's also, I think, speaking about getting a larger movement together, I think also there has been, I wish that the generations could meet. I have a feeling that the older generation has sort of become more comfortable, at least in the context of privileged people, and the young people are the angry ones. And when I go to demonstration, I feel that it's my obligation as an older activist to be there with the young activists, because they are left often, I think, by themselves. And the adults are not there anymore.
Totally. And we messed it up. We leave that planet behind, and they have to deal with it in the future. I totally understand what you say. And also I go to demonstrations with my children because I totally feel the duty to do that.
So yeah, I've been thinking about the ending of the film a lot, because something really happens there. Could you just speak a little about the ending and what your thoughts were there?
Yes, because it took me so much time to decide how to end this film. And of course, it's about, is violence a political mean, yes or no? And can we use it? And I think sometimes it's so very comfortable to say, I'm against violence. Violence leads us nowhere. Violence changed no one. And so I'm not violent. We are against violence. And that is what we say and what is right, because we are humans. Why should we be violent against each other? But there is a point, and there can be a point where this is too comfortable, and where a violent environment will grow if you stay unviolent. So this is what the film is all about. And what I really wanted is that the audience, and that someone who watches the film, that there will rise a wish to be violent in this person, and that you are torn while you're watching it. How can I wish now that she will shoot? How can I wish now that this or that will happen? Why am I behind her when she wants to be violent now, and not with, for example, Butter, who is strictly against violence, which would be my normal position to that question. And I really wanted to make the audience to feel uncomfortable because they wish for violence in a moment, and think about if it could be the right thing to do that. And so the ending, I don't think we should talk about it too much now, but I know that it is satisfying for the audience. And this satisfaction leads to a lot of discussion and dialogue after seeing that film. Why was I satisfied about this ending? How can that be? I'm against violence. So I thought that many people would think about it and talk about it after the film, and I experienced they do.
Yeah, but for me, it was just a reminder of where the violence really is coming from, and
Of course.
because well, how everything is, I mean, there's of course there's the physical violence, but I also have a feeling that the defenders of the system are also getting more violent in every way, in lobbying for it, because as soon as somebody says something about anything, climate change, then somebody is going to say, no, it's not that bad. And that somebody is always people with corporate power or political power.
Of course. And that makes us so angry. And that is what we show in the film, because this is why are left-wing people violent at all? Because they don't trust the government. They don't trust the governmental organs that should have the weapons in their hand, police, military, and too often we experience that they are connected to right-wing structures. And so many people start to think we cannot trust them, we have to do it ourselves. And that is something that we had so many news about, things like racist chat groups, weapons disappearing from the army and were found in a razzia in a right-wing organization. Tons and tons of news, like every day. And also people were shot and murdered, and they didn't get sentenced enough for that. And they got support from the police. And of course, that leads to mistrust if the violence is in the right hands with the government. And that is very, very dangerous for a democracy.
Yes, mistrust, and also that people really have been let down in every way. I mean, economically and with social security and everything. So of course it has to come out somehow. And
yeah.
So, but the film is, you've chosen a title, I think, that is full of hope. So where's the hope?
First of all, the title is not only full of hope, but it's also a sentence from a Nazi song from the 30s. Today, Germany belongs to us, and tomorrow the entire world. So there was a lot of discussion about the title, because it's, yeah, it makes you torn, but I totally see that hope, because we think about tomorrow and that the world is going to change. I see that hope in the young generation. As a mother, I can see that a very political generation is growing up, and Greta comes from your country. She's only the icon for it, but I see many, many following her. And there was another generation between me and them, and they're about now in their 30s. And I'm a teacher also at a university. I worked a lot with that other generation, and I was sometimes very sad, because we in the 90s, we were so political, so many activists. And then I saw this generation who didn't care at all. They made so many films about relationships and I don't know, private problems that were not so problematic in my eyes that they are important enough for a film. And I see great filmmakers and people coming up now from the young generation. And I totally see that as a university teacher at a film school. There is so much discussion going on, so many films that deal with problems of our world. And this started in the last 3-4 years. And so that gives me a lot of hope.
That sounds wonderful and hopeful. So, yeah. and just the because I think we're running out of time now, but just the obligatory question, and what is your next project?
My next project is about, I'm sitting here at the Kudamm. Can you see it? This is the Gedächtniskirche, and yeah, I don't know if you could see it. It's the very famous Kurfürstendamm, and there we have a department store. It's the KaDeWe. It's quite famous in the world, and that has such an interesting history. It belonged to Jews, like a lot of department stores, and of course it was robbed by the Nazis. So we have that story, and also a huge lesbian love story. between two young women who meet in that department store. And there was a very lively lesbian subculture here in the 1920s, and it was all forgotten. How lively it was, much more lively than it is now, actually. So we are telling a series, and it's called El Dorado KaDeWe. El Dorado was the lesbian club here that was famous. KaDeWe is the KaDeWe. And so we connect those two stories in a series, and it will be aired in the German primetime television in Christmas, actually. And I'm very happy to bring that to the German audience.
So let's hope that it will also come to the Swedish audience.
I hope so, yes. It will be wonderful. And also they will meet actors from And Tomorrow the Entire World. They will meet them in the new series as well.
That's good, because now we'll be opening your film on Friday here, and we are very hopeful, and we're actually having a pre-screening tomorrow at a sort of a cultural house that has been totally built up by activists, and we're having screening there, and I really, really wish you could be there. I think it's going to be really great, and they are so happy, and I think they sold it out in 5 minutes, and so
that is amazing. That is amazing. Wow.
So great.
I wish I could be there.
And of course, we're also hoping that we will get a young audience to this film, but I think that also the older audience needs to be there.
Exactly.
Together, we have to do it together.
Thank you so much for that conversation, and I hope to get to know you somewhere else.
Yes, hope to see you live sometime, and good luck with the future, and thank you for your great film, which is so necessary and good. Bye-bye.